what brought me to Portland was the fact that I was born here. That's how I was born. And from that point, I'd always wanted to dance. But the only thing that was available in dance was ballet. There was nothing else to do unless it was ballet and tap, bubblegum chewing, sort of, And so I never did tap. I was only in ballet at the time. And then when I went to college, I had to make a choice. Was I going to go to New York and be a professional dancer, or was I going to go on to college? And so I decided to go to college because, number one, I don't have the body for ballet. To be a ballet dancer, you have to have a long neck, you have to have long legs, and a short torso. And if you don't, you're going to look like a doofus. That's the body type you have to have. And I knew I didn't have that. Martha Graham discovered in New York that she didn't either. And she worked from contraction and release and using the torso as an expressive thing rather than the legs. Mm-hmm. That's why balance was important. But where did ballet come from? Came from Louis XIV. And he always wore what? A crown. Right. And because the deportment was very important. You see, you don't wiggle around. Mm-hmm. And so balance and deportment was very important. Do you know the first thing that I was asked to teach when I was here? Visual poise.
Oh, wow.
So I taught visual poise, and I coached many models, etc. And one of my dancers who went on to be a professional dancer in New York and also developed theater out here was Rick Young. And because I wanted to say, if on my birthday you have to give me the gift of yourself. I mean, whatever you come with, whatever kind of body you got, whatever kind of skill you have. And some people were in theater, and some people were in dance, etc. And so Rick, brought the design, some of his designs, and then I wore them, of course.
Oh, wow.
And the person who, it was for Reed College, your first tenured professor of dance at Reed, was one of the students that presented one of her things in my class. She was in my class. Bright girl,
Wow. Who was that?
That was Pat Wong.
Okay.
Patricia Wong, and that's her married name, and I said, Pat, you're probably the only dancer who's ever made any money in dance.
Yeah.
Because there's no field for it.
Right.
And
would you mind if
Sure.
I just close that door a little bit? I'm afraid that we'll get a little bit of sound from the TV.
Not at all. That's
and
fine.
I just want to make sure that we're really hearing. I think about some of these things after.
Well, yeah.
A little bit.
I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. So this was at PSU where you had people celebrate your birthday?
Right, and that was in a class that I made up myself.
Oh, wow.
Because I wasn't going to teach steps like everything that else was in. I was trying to separate because I knew very early that it didn't belong in PE, though it was physical education. That's true. And it wasn't recreation, which social dance and folk dance is. It was this weird thing. It was an art form. And nobody knew art form from a hole in the head any more than they would know the difference between a symphony and a chamber group. And I said we would come closer to chamber music because we don't put ourselves in a box and you just look at one side of me and I always turn my legs out so you always see the best lines. That's not the point. Mm-hmm. It's what I create. And there's some pictures I wanted to show you, which a photographer did of me that got the feeling, it's don't look at me, look at what I'm creating. If I have a scarf or I'm standing in front of a tree or I'm wearing a skirt. Mm-hmm. What do I make the skirt do? What do I make the scarf do? How do I relate to a vertical axis when I'm just standing out here in space, etc. So time, space, and intensity are the raw materials of dance as an art form. So the PE majors didn't know what to do with me because, I don't know where to start, because I wouldn't teach them steps. I would give them movement problems. And I'd make you understand, all right, here's a boy, here's a girl. One of you's heavier, one of you's lighter. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to move? Etc. Figure it out. How do you relate to somebody here, now, right now? What are you going to do? What happens when you try to move? What happens when one of you loses your balance? What are you going to do? That's where dance starts, right there. Do you see the difference? It's very, very different. So these poor people, and I said, well, now listen, you are PE majors and you have to go out and teach modern dance to grade school kids and high school kids. How are you going to do that? Do you understand what it is? Finally, I got so frustrated, I said, I'll tell you what, there aren't enough classes here. So I developed the curriculum for modern dance as an art form at Portland State. There wasn't enough hours. I couldn't get it. It was just me. So I said, come to the beach. I'm going to rent one of my students' homes, and you come to the beach and you do something to keep the rain out and something to let the sun in, and we're going to work on the beach, and I'm going to rent the Taft roller rink so we can have indoors. So I'm going to teach you technique in the morning and composition in the afternoon and movement aesthetics at night. Wow. And then and you're going to be, and people came, their ages were from probably 14 or 15 years old to 42. Parents and a lot of people from the different arts had heard, and they just wanted to be submerged in movement as an art form. Mm-hmm. See, very different.
Was this connected to PSU, or was this something
No. So for 1961, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I did these beach workshops.
Oh, wow.
Jake Avshalomov must have heard of me somewhere along the line, because I was a graduate of Mills College with honors, so he was doing something for the symphonic choir, and was junior symphony, and he wanted to do a movement thing, and so he asked me if I would stage that, and I said, there's nobody in Portland who knows how to move. So I said, I just got a motley bunch of people that haven't had any training, and if you know what a ballet dancer's schedule is, they're taking 2 and 3 hour classes of just technique, then they're learning the dance, and then they're rehearsing that, and there's nobody in modern dance that can do that. Mm-hmm. And I said, but I'll put together the best that I can. Well, it was a big hit. And he said, well, you've got to start the Force Dance Company. And I said, but nobody knows how to dance. Nobody knows what they're doing yet. And they don't know how to compose. I'm not that smart. I'm not that creative. But I know I can tell. When something is wonderful, it's like in religion, they talk about thin spaces, or they talk about the radiance of something, or God, or whatever. Those moments are aha moments, and I want people to find that in movement, but not somebody's pretty body, but how can they make me see movement in a new way? Yeah. That's what's exciting. So tried to develop that, then went back and I said, well, I've got to build a curriculum. How are people going to know how to appreciate this? So there's somebody who's got to teach movement aesthetics. Somebody has to. Well, nobody was. So what is the transition from PE to dance as an art form, not as a recreation, not a social dance, not as folk, not as hoochie coochie, and whatever is going on, something of the stars, Dancing with the Stars. That's, oh, it's beautiful, etc. But I said, once in a while, when I saw world-class skaters, for example, that were on this, I said, how beautiful. But it was how simple they did it. It wasn't, how much can you shake your booty or whatever. I was just horrified by seeing all the sexuality.
Oh, I know. And
that has nothing to do with art. But anyway, you got the idea.
Yeah, and something I find amazing is that a lot of the issues that you're talking about that were misconceptions and problems about how uneducated people viewed dance in the early 60s are still there. Biases and problems today.
That's exactly right. There's another thing. Modern dance used to be called, first it was interpreting music, then it was called interpretive dance. Well, when I went around the world and I studied Frau Wigmann, it was in West Germany. That's when the wall was up, for example. And Mr. Avshalom's students in the Junior Symphony had family that were in East Berlin, so we had to sneak back and forth, etc. at the time. But
wait, you snuck back and forth between East and West Germany?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Well, it was not easy. But what was important, and then I did an article when I came back. They did, I can show you a yellowed copy of, I said, the time and the place creates the culture in which you grow. And you have to understand that. When I was, for example, Frau Wigmann worked with von Laban, and von Laban was the founder of dance notation. So a dancer was just a bunch of steps that they learned, but somebody had to create a dance, but there was no way of recording dance. Where would you be? How would you know to read Bach or Beethoven or Tchaikovsky or anything if nobody learned how to notate music? Nobody knew how, and nobody did. Do you know what von Laban did in East Germany? That was during the Third Reich. That's during Hitler's time. And he wanted a movement efficiency expert, time, space, and movement. How to be the most efficient you can be and move the fastest. Isn't that interesting? And so he made a graph of time, space, and intensity and plotted it just like it looks like a score. So how could you teach dance as an art if nobody created a work?
Right.
Other words, you'd just be interpreting your feelings or something, I mean, if you're neurotic, I don't, if I care about your feelings right now.
Right.
You see?
But,
because I don't want your neurosis, I don't want to hear about that. The thing is, so music is not it. My feelings is not it. It's time, space, and intensity. And what happens when you begin to move? Or what happens when you have to interact with water or air? Or hanging out of it, or what do you do when you don't have a ground under you? What do you do when you don't have a tennis shoe? What do you do when you don't have a toe shoe? You see, it's constantly, you have to be in the here and now. So anyway, then, we had a big problem. I had to develop curriculum. We had to develop dance appreciation. And those poor PE majors who had to teach modern dance just probably said, forget it.
when was this? Was this in '61 when you came?
Because I was at Portland State in the '60s. So I built the curriculum and a polyglot bunch of people that they called the Portland Dance Company. And then I was asked to be on the Governor's Council of Arts. And I was representing dance, and then I was representing for the state the health, physical education, and recreation. That was called OFER. That was part of a PE majors thing. Well, I was the one that was the head for the state for dance.
Oh, wow.
And nobody quite knew what that was all about anyway. So, I guess I was a pioneer. My husband can, trace his background back to the Mayflower and et cetera. And I said, no, I'm just a dumb Swede, basically. Is because I don't know who came before me, but I have to deal with the here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's modern dance. And what I did, I did 1,000 programs for OEPBS. After I did the thing for Portland State,
Mm-hmm.
and Portland State was a college. Was a college. It wasn't even a university then.
Oh, wow.
And so right now, you need to know what do we have an Oregon Dance Council or not? Does the governor have that? Can he get funds from the federal government? I set all that up in 1966. And I called the dean of Portland State now, the dean of the College of Arts, and I haven't even met him yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to find out, well, what have you done since 1966? And so you, as a young man, will find out, because now I have to take care of a 96-year-old husband, and I'm half blind. So that's where I segue out, and I work on taking care of people who can't move, and stuff in psychotherapy, et cetera, et cetera. But I think from me, you need to talk to Portland State. You need to talk to BodyVox. You need to talk, because that's a company that has grown up that wouldn't be here if I hadn't been back there with that bunch of nuts that couldn't do anything,
And so, the Governor's Council?
And I don't
Which
know.
nuts?
I don't know. No, I don't know what they know.
Okay.
I don't even know if it exists anymore.
Yeah.
Because look, that's been 50 years ago. I mean, you're not even this old, for example.
No, definitely.
I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So that BodyVox and Northwest Dance Project, mm-hmm. and Polaris, and then there are two gentlemen.
Daniel Kirk?
What is there? Two men that bring ethnic dance from all over the world. They do what Diaghilev did for ballet,
Is this Whitebird?
Yes, that's it. See, I told you I had that.
That's all right. No.
Yeah. and so those people need to be contacted.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do they? Who's there? What are they doing? Are they collaborating? Portland State has the theater now. They have it. They should all be artists in residence, because they're not even teaching dance notation, I don't think, there. And there's nobody who knows how to even read it anyway.
I do.
Good for you.
Thank you. It took me a long time to figure it out.
But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
How important? So you don't even have great works to refer back to. Mm-hmm. So you can't even interpret dance like a musician. Right. Kalmer for our symphony can interpret all these scores. Mm-hmm. You don't have that available.
Because people haven't used that system.
That's right, and not enough people, not even enough people, if you did have it, would know how to read it.
It's true.
See?
It's true.
So you see, we're still in the dark ages,
mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. We really are. So that's why I can tell you there's a lot more, there's the rest of the story, because what do you do? As I pointed out when you came today, I said my husband and my combined age is 187. So you see, my days of dancing, my husband can't walk from the elevator and he's a world-class athlete, and I wouldn't want to do anything in dance anymore, but I'd sure like to help other people. And I can sure bring out the best in anybody else, because I have a crappy, instrument.
Well, I'm pretty impressed, given.
but you see what I mean, though?
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm curious, what was the, so you went to Mills, and is that where you got your some dance training?
Yeah, but it was in fine arts.
Ah, so at that point at Mills, dance was launched under the fine arts.
Fine arts. It was a fine art. And had I not gone to Mills, I would never have even heard of modern dance. I would have, I don't know what I would have done because I knew I wasn't made for ballet. I had the wrong body type anyway, because that's a very specialized body. And it's a beautiful body.
Oh, totally. But it's a very specific...
But it's a very specific kind that met a special aesthetic. That's very, very different. Today, people seem to be interested in big boobs and butts, I guess, kind of. And so sexuality is just right out there in front of you. That probably came from who is the dancer that he wasn't a dancer. He was a
Papa.
No, there were 5 boys.
Oh, Jackson.
Michael Jackson. Started another way of moving, etc.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing.
Right.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And
it's not good or bad. It's
not good or bad. It's just different. It's just
different from
But you see,
dance.
these are the things that have happened in the last 55 years. See.
May I ask when you graduated from Mills?
1957.
And then what year did you come back to Portland?
1958.
All right. Yeah. So you came right back after that.
And then I had 2 children.
Oh, wow.
And then my son died of Lou Gehrig's disease, and my daughter was, and then her father died of Lou Gehrig's disease. So and then I walked out of tenure Portland State, so I had to learn to support myself, etc. In the interim.
What got you connected originally to Portland State?
To Portland State?
Yeah.
Well, I was asked to teach movement. It was a thing that they had heard of because University of Oregon, under Fran Doherty, had a dance department. And I said, we're in a metropolitan center here. And I said, you need to have a university here that draws on the best that Portland, that our metropolitan, like New York becomes a center. Do you see? And we can be that on the West Coast. That's the difference. And so what brought me to Portland was is because I was born here.
Coming home in a way. You had roots here.
Yeah, and I went to Mills and then came back, and then Mills College sent me to the Connecticut School for Women, which had the first time where I could study with Martha Graham, Jose Limon, Doris Humphrey, Martha Graham. I said Martha Graham.
You studied with all of those people?
I've studied with all of those people.
That's phenomenal. Wow.
So, and the interesting thing, many graduate students who were going to get a master's degree, because I had worked with these people when I was going to Mills. Ruth St. Denis was a fading star she was in California. And I told my parents that, I'd like to go down and meet this woman because she's not. And the same thing with
Graham?
And no, not Martha Graham, but the same thing with Mary Wiegmann.
Oh.
I said, because she was, when I went around the world, she said, well, I'm in Switzerland now on a health cure because she had tuberculosis during the war, etc. She said, but I won't be back until August. And I said, well, I only have the summer to do this. And so that was sort of like my master's degree, as it were, because I worked with the very people that other people subsequently were writing about. So I was about as close to the horse's mouth as I could be.
That's pretty phenomenal. When you came back to Portland in 58 and coming in the early 60s to Portland State College at that point,
right.
What was happening with modern dance in Portland?
Nothing. There was nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It was only ballet. That's all there was, unless somebody had a studio and they taught tap and they taught whatever or maybe jazz, etc., and ballet. And I grew up in Beaverton, Oregon. And my dad had the first butcher shop in Beaverton, and both of my parents were Swedish immigrants. And in Beaverton, and down the street was there was a little German cafe, and next to him was a shoe repair place. And that shoe repair place is where Bowerman came up with the first Nike shoe.
Wow.
So, and I just read Shoe Dog, which was the background of Phil Knight.
Okay, yeah.
And he went through exactly what I went through with Schwinn at the same time, because we were double crossed, because we had the best engineers, etc. We took them over there to have our bikes made cheaper, and then all of a sudden the fitness division carried the whole rest of the Schwinn company, the four other divisions. We were the fifth during that time, because chromoly came in, and then the test of your bike was, could you balance it on your finger?
Wow.
Or could you pick it up after a car drove over it? And Schwinn had a parts department that was so vast, there wasn't one thing that was built by Schwinn that didn't have the part. Every kid could fix their own bike.
That's pretty amazing.
And then we couldn't carry that inventory anymore, so something had to change. Then everybody, it was so fashionable to have a light bike, etc. And so that market overtook it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the things that the person who does the bike company, not the bike company, but
shoes.
Yeah, the shoe company. That he went through when he was trying to develop a market. Now, what would we do without him? And what would University of Oregon do without a Phil Knight?
That's such a good point.
I mean,
did you you mentioned a little bit when you were working with the symphony or the classical musician, that he said maybe you should start a modern dance company in Portland.
Yeah.
Did you end up starting a company, or you did?
Yeah. Well, no, they started up, and I said, that was the catalyst to make me go back to Portland State and develop a curriculum.
Got it. I remember that now. That makes sense. So that
my job was curriculum development. And if you look over what I proposed to the Governor's Council on, if you want to develop dance, these are the things you have to have in place, etc. And how are you going to spread how are you ever going to get an audience bigger than just the living room or something for modern dance unless people know what they're looking at, and unless they're sensitized to movement.
Couldn't agree more.
Do you see?
You know the name of the dance company that he created then? Or
who?
Did somebody...
No, me. I was the choreographer. I was the dancer. So
you did all the stuff at Portland State with the hopes that then people would have the education to start their own dance company.
Yeah.
And that ended up being Portland.
And then the company, and then they got grants. And I said, it's kind of sick for a university, to try to think they're the whole thing. And I said, so what I did was bring New York artists to Portland State, so that they would get an exposure. And this Northwest Dance Project is the finest thing that I have seen happen in Portland, because these dancers are trained like ballet dancers were in the past. Not the same technique only, but the fact that they were exposed to lots of different choreographers. And when I was asked to start a dance company, I said, well, you need to be exposed to lots of different backgrounds. I can't be the dancer, the lead dancer, and the choreographer, and train the dancers. I can't be the whole schmeal. You've got to work with other people. So that's how it started. See, I brought This is a little aside. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I said for dancers, they don't wear tennis shoes. They wear bare feet.
Yes.
They're in bare feet often. And I said they can't go leaping around on a cement floor. And to this day, I have the injuries from the number of classes that I taught leaping around on cement, because it was just a rubber coating over cement. And I asked them in the dance studio to put a sprung floor, like basketball players have. They have a sprung floor. And they said, oh, well, she's just an emotional woman, she doesn't know. And so they didn't pay any attention to that. I bring a New York company in here, and they said, we can't, they have no place to rehearse. We can't dance on that. And so then they decided to redo the floor for how many? $15,000, et cetera. Mm-hmm. I put the lighting in there. I went back 10 years later when I left Portland State, and they're using it for kickboxing now. Oh. All the electrical stuff that I put in. And I happen to know Paul Ward, who had the weightlifting stuff. And I said, so he had his budget. Mm-hmm. Well, I had a hysterectomy. And I said, Paul, I said, there's nothing the matter with me, but I don't have enough fat to bed when I had this hysterectomy. I said, and I was telling him about aerobic fitness, and he was telling me about weightlifting. And I said, there are 34 stairs up to my home. Would you mind carrying me up there, to that? And he started, and I said, Paul, why are you winded? I said, I thought you were, well, you teach weightlifting and stuff. Why are you winded? And I said, you're a fraud.
Oh, that's great. That's funny.
But did you see what I mean? I mean, I said, all right, there's more to the body than big muscles. Absolutely. And there's more to the body than boobs and butts, et cetera.
I could not agree more.
And there's something about, and I go back to visual poise, and that's one thing that I would take, from the ballet, is there is a way for, I have to tell you another thing. This is so fun. I taught out at Lake Oswego, and Merrillhurst is out there, mm-hmm. and they have a home for emotionally disturbed children. Right. And it was called Christie Home, and it still exists today. And so I went out there to work with these girls, and they were about 7th and 8th graders. They were about that age, the ones that I was asked to do something for. And they started to tell me about their background. And I said, I don't want to know their background. Mm-hmm. I want them to meet me as they are, as I am, here and now. And we will go from there. And I said, the one thing you're going to do is I want you to stand up, and I want you to be ready to go to graduation. And so, rather than being mm-hmm. like this, they didn't. They did. And so they said, I don't know what that lady's doing out there, but whatever she's doing, we have to have more of it. And I said, in other words, everybody can start fresh. Yeah. Who you are right now is what matters. I don't care what kind of things your past has been. I don't care about what your problems are. I want to know what's beautiful about you right now.
What an amazing perspective.
So that was what I did for Christie Home, mm-hmm. So you could call that psychotherapy. All I did was teach them to walk.
Well, there's a lot of power in that, isn't there?
Do you see?
Yeah.
With dignity,
mm-hmm.
with a sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so important. Mm-hmm. So that meant a lot to me. Two things that preceded my time at Portland State. Mm-hmm. And when I was at Portland State, and I didn't know what to call modern dance, because I didn't want to be interpretive dance, and I didn't want to be about. So what was it? I called it movement dynamics. Movement dynamics is what I taught. It was the theory of movement.
Right.
And how do you perceive it with your eyes and your kinetic sense?
Beautiful.
You see?
What ended up leading to you moving on from Portland State?
From Portland State. Now
Right,
that was I was solving another problem at that time. I had elderly parents at that time. They were about the age that I am now, as a matter of fact. And I said, because Portland State was connected with the Chancellor of Education, and so Channel 10 was part of it. And I said, I want to do a document, not a documentary, but I want to do a trial thing on movement. And I said, but I had in mind my dad, who was just not getting out very much. And I said, I can't come over here all the time. I've got 2 young children. And I said, but I'm going to be on every day and just tune in. Then my mother did that too. And so she saw me every day, and she died at 100.
Wow.
You've
got amazing genes.
but isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And she was in a retirement home at that time, and she was 90 at that time.
Wow.
But she always was, and the other people had some exercise to do, like maybe do it in a chair and stuff, and I had done that for people too. And maybe there were 2 or 3 people, and then there were 4 or 5, but there were about 120 people there, I think. Oh, wow. But maybe there was maybe 8 or 10 people, for example, that took part in this. And but the interesting thing is, and I think I told you again about my program was right after Sesame Street. So I was concerned about the mothers who didn't have time to go out to clubs, and they couldn't afford a babysitter. So what were they going to do? And I saw on television something. It was somebody that was just in a rhythm. And I have a grandson that is a fantastic drummer. He's just got rhythm just pouring out of him, etc. And they were able to do something that was fun and kinetic.
Yeah.
So
you left Portland State to help take care of your parents, and also because you had this TV opportunity.
Well, then it took off.
Yeah.
And it was more popular than Sesame Street. And it was on for 9 years. And then I had Vaunda's View, and I had Uniquely You, and there were 3 different things. Oh, and then I did a series on Dr. William Sheldon, to give people the understanding of movement from a different point of view altogether. And I did a documentary of Dr. Sheldon's work, and that was bought by Harvard, and then at that time, and he was the founder of pretty much statistical science and everything, and he came out to the medical school here, and he was doing a study on lifers in prison because he had a bunch of people he could do an epidemiological study to see how they fit. And so that made me very, very cognizant of the uniqueness of body types. And I can look at anybody today and I can say, number one, my husband and I can both, when nurses were taking care of him when he was in the hospital, I could look at anyone that came to take care of him and I said, I know what your sport is and I know what you've trained in. Because I can see it in the body and I can see it in the temperament.
Wow.
And he can too. But, that's, and I said, don't send us a physical therapist. Don't send us an occupation. Just take care of the wound. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, do you know if Portland Dance Theater was the first modern company in town?
Portland Dance Company, what it was, not that I know of if there was anything else.
Before that, all right.
No, yeah. I think it was all ballet based pretty much.
Okay.
It was not that I knew of, and I'd don't know. I mean, population's much increased now.
Right.
But back when I would, because why would they have asked me to do that in the first place if there was somebody else?
That's true.
So,
and the Portland Dance Company came into being really because of the seeds that you set down at Portland State. Right. What did you...
Well, no, yeah, that's right. No, the seeds that I'd done there, and then those summer workshops that I did while I was building the curriculum, because there wasn't enough curriculum to have a dance major. Yeah. So I had to develop the curriculum.
Wow.
You know.
Did you cross over at Portland State with Judy Patton or any
They were all in the first company with Pat. You're right.
Oh, all in the first class?
No, or... and then I told them, you know, I said, you have to be a company, you have to be a freestanding company. They got the first grants for modern dance. You need to talk to, I don't know where Patton is anymore. And Kathy Evelyn was one of the others, and I had her take one of the position, and then the person who did the ballet, for example. And then, you know, your teacher was Mary Ausland, I think?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, and I don't know who her teacher was, but et cetera. So she would have been kind of in the modern, and I don't know if she had background at University of Oregon, because that was the first, that was the first legitimate dance. They were trying to do something in dance, but it's still very heavily. Right.
So you were all, your students were all Kathy Evelyn, Judy Patton, Pat Wong.
No, they were my students.
Yes, they were, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, those were all your students.
Yeah. And so that company that company that grew out of the Portland State that I tried to develop were the first, but they weren't they were getting grants and stuff, but they really weren't a freestanding company. Now these four that I mentioned to you are freestanding. They've got their own board of directors. They have their own promotion. They have all of that now. The one that you're starting, the one at Portland State, didn't have any of that. See?
Right.
See, they were just basic on grants and stuff.
And this was kind of because nobody else that we know of had really done anything like this in Portland.
Right.
So there wasn't a model or just like,
there was no model. That was it. We pulled it out. I mean, it pulled it out of the ground, basically.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I have talked with Judy Patton. She's down in Southern California now.
Is she now, right?
Yeah, and I talked with Kathy Evelyn. She lives up in Northeast Portland.
Is she still, right?
Yeah, and they, and Pat Wong, and they all look back on the Portland Dance Theater. I talked with Greg Beetlemeyer, too.
Yeah, good.
As a very vibrant and kind of pivotal moment in all of their lives, and something that... really helped to give them a sense of identity and purpose. And so that was, it felt like, from talking with people, a very pivotal moment for dance in Portland of actually coming of age.
Yeah. So you see how they all kind of came together.
Yeah.
You see?
And that's because of exactly what you said.
Yeah.
To have a dance company, you got to have people that are educated.
Yeah.
And you set down that curriculum to educate.
And that's right. And they did some beautiful things. And when I told you the very first, you know, what does she teach? She doesn't teach steps. What does she teach? Et cetera. And you know, and so from that beginning. Is the movement dynamic, and I'm telling you, I had art majors, I had music majors, I had people from all kinds of different backgrounds to come to this class, and when I taught the social dance class, I'm telling you, it was one of the biggest classes. So in order to do more creative dance classes, I said, I'll teach this for nothing. And because if I have a class that has more students than there is room for them, you know, then let me teach this one that will probably only 6 people will sign up for, et cetera. But that's important in building what I care about.
Yeah.
You know, in the meantime, we'll do the...
And then you got to,
it was so funny. Think, I was teaching modern dance. Well, no, I was teaching social dance back then. How stupid is that? I mean, the boy is supposed to lead the girl in traditional, and I'd have to have a student, I'd hold his hand, I said, now look at, if I do this, or this, you move forward or back or whatever, but you look like you're leading me, not that I'm leading you.
Wow, that's great.
You know? See what I mean?
I totally see what you mean. And you brought up so many phenomenal points, I think just very nicely articulated about dance. And, you know, it's amazing how some things have changed so much since the early 60s and some things have not changed at all.
Yeah. And now you see what your job is.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? Now you see what your job is.
Right. To show people what could have been.
Yeah.
And what has been.
And where are we? Have we progressed like Vaunda had envisioned?
Right.
Have you done it? The only thing that I know of, I just thought this body box, to me it was like the New Yorker magazine in movement, because they were so witty and so wonderful.
Yeah.
And then when I saw that this young, and the thing is, the Sarah Slipper, I think is doing that now. It's not all her choreography.
No.
Look at how many different choreographers she's had, and how wonderfully enriched those people are, but they've been trained. This their commitment now. They can spend 8 hours a day, both in their technique and in their compass, you know, and learning new works. And how diversified.
Yeah.
See, now why I refused to head a dance company, because I would be the dancer and the choreographer and the scenic director. You know.
Was it hard back in '61 to sell the PE department that modern dance is an important component of college education?
I was you know, who's that freaky lady, you know?
Yeah. So how did you convince them that you had a role here?
Well, no, I think it was people in the. I wrote down. I'm going to show you something.
Of course.
No, I'll come right back. I wrote down some of my collaborators here. The people that were movers and shakers when I was in dance, because I don't consider myself in dance anymore. Lloyd Reynolds was at Reed College, and he taught calligraphy. And he was trying to do at Reed, and understand, Reed has always been having somebody in dance. But they had Lloyd Reynolds, and he was trying to make articulate what's on the written page. And who is the one that, and was it Apple? That
Right, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Yeah. Steve Jobs was inspired by him. You know? And so the thing is, you'd want the modern dancers to have that kind of an impact.
Right.
You know, knowing how to look at. Andreas Dynam taught the art of the film at Portland State. And we were Lloyd Reynolds and Andreas Dynam and Jakov Shalomov, we were all on the boards trying to tell people about the arts, etc. But you see, he was in film. Today, I think dance is under film and theater because they have to have someplace to show stuff. Kaylee started the Playbox Players, you know, with mime and children's theater, and so she's a wonderfully creative person. Marcia Belcher Thayer went to Mills College with me, and Agnes Bomer, she worked with Agnes Bomer, who founded the Shakespearean Festival in Ashland.
OSF, yeah.
And she went on to get like when I went around the world for dance, she went to England to study the masks of the pre-classic dance forms, etc. And so there was always theater in the green, and it used to be all pre-classic dance forms that were in the masks of Shakespeare, etc. So she was the founder of that for the Shakespearean Festival. And then Leroy Setzel was the carver, you know, and Cornelia Surf taught at Merrillhurst, but she was a Spanish dancer, and she also had, and her father was at Reed, a professor at Reed, and so she had an empathy for modern dance, but she was really trained in Spanish and Spanish dance, and she taught at Merrillhurst, and she and I together did some of the pre-classic things in Leroy Setzel's home.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So and William Iron, for example, did the Fur Acres Theater at Lewis and Clark. And then my daughter went for a couple of years to she went to Mills College and Lewis and Clark. And then Fran Doherty, I told you, was as a professor of dance at University of Oregon. So these were all my contemporaries.
Yeah.
See, these were the people I interacted with. I really didn't interact very much with the PE department because they didn't know how to even. They didn't know what to do with me.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that I ended up married to somebody who was a world-class athlete. Is that the funniest thing?
Now in dance and academia, it's impossible to get a job. There's like 300 people that apply for one position.
Yeah.
Was it hard in '61 to get that job, or
did you get which job?
Your job at Portland State.
Oh no, I was all I was is I taught one PE instructor. They had PE instructors. If you were good at something, you were the golfer or you were the whatever. And so I was just asked, and they had heard, probably because University of Oregon we have to have modern dance in here someplace. So I was just an instructor for that.
And then there you were with your Mills training and your work with Graham and Lamone and you came...
and all these people.
Yeah.
Then I pulled out this file. I think it was 1961. I can't remember when it was. The rank and pay thing. Well, I'd done so much for nothing that I said, rank and pay, I was supposed to fill out something for a rally. And so then I listed something, and then I said, oh my God, I did that. I did, this guy, maybe I should have all this out here, to see what all has transpired. So,
wow.
But anyway, and Dorothea Lynch was the one that had modern dance at the old firehouse, and that was the Park Bureau had something going, and she was a real pace setter. Dorothea Lynch, I don't even know that she's alive anymore. Most of my contemporaries now are dead.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, these are all famous people.
It's quite a list of contemporaries.
Yeah, but you see, they were all in arts of some sort.
Right, because there was no modern dance group here in Portland. So to be able to be in a community, to have people to exchange ideas with, it was people working in calligraphy and architecture and visual art.
There wasn't the person that was teaching football and basketball and what did I have to do with that? Nothing.
Right.
Or gymnastics. Many people thought this was gymnastics. No, it's not. Those people, I'm just impressed like crazy because of the difficulty of balance beam and flipping, and that's wonderful what they do.
But a different field.
It's a different field.
way of using the body.
Yeah, but you appreciate them on the difficulty of what they did. That's very different than the beauty of what they did. But if they do it very well, you say it's beautiful. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
Yeah.
You left Portland State in '65?
I left Portland State. Let's see. When did I? Let's see. When I left Portland State. Well, I left Portland State then to do the thing for Channel 10.
Right.
But you see, that was still part of the education thing, kind of. And then I accepted the position for Schwinn Bicycle.
Right.
And then from there. Then I had all this illness in my family, and then my husband died, and then my fiance was killed in a motorcycle accident, and so I just had to plain take care of myself at that time.
Of course, and all these other things that you did were wonderful pursuits and made a big difference
in different fields. You see, and I said, dance is way back there.
And in a way, if you hadn't had that dance training and experience in dance, you may not have gotten these other opportunities, or if you had, you would have approached them very differently because you wouldn't have had the knowledge that you gained at Mills and
the
teaching.
thing is, all of those have been, I don't consider myself particularly creative, but they were, I started with a body I didn't like, but with a love of movement.
Yeah. That's phenomenal.
And so I never wanted, I always, probably why I was a master teacher is because I saw so much potential in everybody else because they were so much better than I am. You know, I just saw, God, they can do this, and oh, now if they let their mind get in this, that's what I saw in Pat Wong. I mean, she's such an intelligent girl and had a lovely body, etc. And I said, you stay in, modern dance needs you. You know, she's a highly intelligent girl, etc. So don't let your skill level outdo your creative, you know, and she blends the two, you know. Phenomenal. And she kind of left modern dance kind of like I do, because for a long time, modern dance they couldn't get their act together. And it's sort of like I go to a concert and I said, oh, been there, done that. They haven't, nothing new, etc. So I got very weary of it. And not until very lately, I've seen some beautiful things, some dumb stuff.
Sure.
You know, some things that aren't so wonderful. But it's starting to come together. It's starting to meld together.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for them. So that's why all of these people should know each other.
Absolutely.
And they should all funnel into Portland State, because there's a stage, and it's in the metropolitan center of Oregon, and it's the center of Portland. Who better than Portland State to have now a College of the Arts?